And I think the first thing I had to think about was, is special needs a lost people group? Is there anybody that's trying to reach them?
Jesus helped the blind see, the deaf hear, the mute speak, and the lame walk. Why then are American churches so often under-equipped to minister to the disabled? This is a special conversation between two dads who care deeply about ministry to those who struggle with disabilities. Rob Stout's daughter was born with VACTERAL syndrome, while Pastor Jeff Paschall's son was born with Down syndrome. The Next Stage podcast for men is a bi-weekly audio and video podcast helping a man live a life of purpose, born out of his identity as a man created in God's image. For more information about Rob Stout, the Next Stage podcast, or Sherpa Unlimited, see the show notes or visit sherpaunlimited.com/podcast. Welcome to the Next Stage.
Men, welcome to the Next Stage, and we are back with Pastor Jeff Paschall. He is the lead pastor of Summit Baptist Church in Wiggins, Colorado. For those of you who don't know where that is, it is outside of Denver, a little ways, and you can look it up on a map. But Jeff, welcome back. You are a returning guest with us, and excited to have you today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, thanks so much for the generosity of your time. And we are recording this around Easter time, so we know that that is a super busy time for you, but appreciate your willingness, especially around this issue that we're going to jump into. And let's dig right in, if that's cool.
Sure, absolutely.
Jeff has done some work around the issue of families and special needs and the church, and how the community of the church, and specifically we're going to talk about men, but how the church can serve that community, really coming out of what is your personal story. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of all that, or a plan or anything like that, would you just share with us kind of your background? How did this topic come to front of mind for you? Did you grow up with it? Was it thrust on you? Kind of what was the circumstance?
Sure. No, I think when I was in seminary, I was in my last semester actually of seminary, and my wife was pregnant with our second. And I was in the process of applying to a lot of churches, looking for what the next step was going to be for us. And we went to an appointment for my wife, and the doctor said, "Hey, there's some issues with the baby. We need you to get to the hospital immediately." And so we rushed over there. She had to have an emergency C-section, and we found out that our son was diagnosed with Down syndrome right away. He had to spend about 3 months in the NICU at that time. So all of our plans were just blown up. They were shattered. I had to cancel interviews. I couldn't accept certain jobs because we had to attend to this young child. And so it became something that was a part of my life, not by a heart for it initially, not by just recognizing it as a need. It was something that God just said, "I'm going to go ahead and help you see this through the birth of your own child and dealing with the issues that he has to deal with moving forward." And so that's a really brief summary of how I got into this understanding of special needs in the church.
Wow. And back to the context.
Sure.
You were finishing up your master's or doctoral work. Is that right?
Yeah. I was finishing my master's at that time. Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so those of you who don't know what a master's, was it an MDiv, an MA? What was it?
It was an MDiv. Yep.
Okay. Let me explain this degree to you. It is, 104-hour master's program. I don't know what your program was like, but mine was. I always thought that going to seminary was like a flannel graph board from the 1970s. You learned where the shepherds went, where the sheep were, where baby Jesus was, and that was kind of it. Man, the thing you need to know about this work is that it is hardcore doctoral level work, even at a master's level. I had Greek and Hebrew. I'm assuming you did as well.
I did.
The lightweights now, they don't even need to take that, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
come on, man.
I know.
But you were, and so let's equate this to a master's in engineering, an MBA, like times three, I would say. And you were in the middle of this, and you were applying for jobs, and this landed on your plate, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the hard thing to explain to people is the immensity of the situation just got thrust on you in probably one of the more busy times of your academic life, at least.
Of your entire life.
Yeah, right? It just falls on you. And now there's and most professors very reasonable, very understanding, but still at the same time, the demand of the work still has to be done. The demand to even the second secular job that I had at the time, I still had to go to that. I still had to make sure we had finances for the rest of our family. And so it became a major issue for us in a lot of ways. God provided and God got us through it, but it was hard and it was very difficult. From the onset.
And that's why I wanted to camp on that. So in the meanwhile, you're trying to figure out how to be a new dad. You're looking for jobs. Interestingly enough, you and I share a really, really similar background in this area.
Right.
Our first child was born with a syndrome called VACTERAL syndrome. It's a set of anomalies, vertebral. I think there's something with the bowels in there, the anus, tracheoesophageal, renal, and limbs. It was this weird set of anomalies. And if you were to lay the 5 issues on the board, we would take the 3 we got and said, hey, put a gun to our head. What 3 do you want? I would go, okay, 1 kidney is fine. Limbs is okay. And vertebrae, we'll take that.
Right.
But so thank goodness we got that. But when that's on you, and this is your first child as well, right?
It was our second child, actually. So we had one at home that we had to keep going and making sure we were there for him too.
Yeah.
So,
right.
But I agree with you. Sometimes I did not know a lot about Down syndrome. And so now it's how fast can I educate myself?
Yes.
What expectations do we have? Even in the immediate expectations. He spent 3 months in the NICU because he had some oxygen issues that he couldn't breathe on his own. And so they had to keep him there. And there was a time when he was in the NICU that they called my wife and said, oh, your son coded for about 2 minutes. We did revive him, but just wanted to let you know that. And the pressure on the doctors are overwhelming. They got so many kids to deal with. Right. But it was kind of a very casual conversation for such a, hey, your son was dead on the table for a while.
Your son died.
Right. And so it was one of those things. It was like, okay, it was a 3-minute conversation when you're like, well, what does that mean? Now we have to go to the hospital and try to figure out what that actually means. Right. So there's so much involved even in the onset.
Yeah. And I think for both of us, those were very formative experiences in our lives. I mean, we had no idea anything was going on until our oldest daughter was born. The first thing I heard was, let's start counting fingers and toes. And I don't know what's a bigger shock, that or you got an emergency C-section. Like I wouldn't necessarily choose. But wow. So there are a lot of parents out there who have been thrust into this. Like I say, I didn't know how you got into this club, but I didn't ever want to be there. Well, I'm not sure anybody did, Rob, talking to myself. Nobody says, hey, let's have a Downs family. Let's have a family with disabilities. On the other hand, I'm like years later and my daughter's grown and she's doing incredibly well in her career and is an actress with a disabled acting troupe, professional. So she's doing great, but I was just like, man, at the moment it was like, whoa, heavy, right?
No, it is. It is very heavy right at the onset. And it's still heavy to somewhat today as we move forward.
Can you share with us some of that?
Yeah, sure. So since he was born and actually since he left the NICU, he still had about 26 procedures he had to go through. I don't know the exact number of surgeries, around 16 to 18 surgeries.
Wow.
So a lot of time in the hospital. He's got multiple diagnoses since then. He's got an autistic diagnosis. He's got eye issues, cataracts. He just recently got diagnosed with alopecia, which is, just hair falling out, which is not a big deal. But it's amazing when even those small diagnoses, they pile on top of each other. And so, we were talking to somebody the other day, and she said the most incredible thing. She goes, "I'm sorry for the alopecia diagnosis, because it's just one more thing. It's just an additional thing. By itself, it's not a big deal. We manage it, but it's on top of it." And so, he's nonverbal. He doesn't talk, and he's 14, about going on 15 here in a few months, and so he's doing fine health wise. He's a small guy, not very big at all. He doesn't eat very well. He's got a paralyzed esophagus, which means he can't eat solid food. So everything we have to feed him is blended or liquid of some kind. So, there's issues. And, the biggest issue when people say, what's the hardest thing to deal with when you deal with Zeke? It isn't changing a diaper of a 15-year-old. It's the repetitive feeding. It is hard that you have to be the one that continually feeds him.
Right.
And, as when you feed your infant, there's a time that's going to stop. Well, there's no time that this stops. 3 days, 3 times a day, we're going to be feeding him with a spoon out of a bowl. And that's just our life. And that's a reality that we have to come to. And
Yeah.
it's okay. We accept it, but that's a reality we have to sit down and just come to.
Yeah. And I imagine the piling on of kind of another straw on the camel's back over the years has been a cumulative, probably fatigue level that you carry.
Sure. And a lot of tears behind the scenes.
Yeah.
A lot of just, making sure Rebecca, my spouse, and I are close, and trying to make sure that she's okay and I'm okay, and we're walking this path together.
Yeah.
But it's a continual renewal process. You got to refresh yourself over and over again, or you will fatigue out.
Yeah.
I believe that's very, very possible.
Yeah. 100%, man. And I would love to camp out on that issue for the rest of our time together. But I want to pivot just a bit, because this captured something in you as far as seeing the overlooked, underserved, marginalized, vulnerable audience that, I don't know if it's kids or their parents, that you began to write about. Can you take us a little bit into your research and talk about the gap between the church typically and serving this community? And maybe it was just serving yourself. You're trying to figure out how to meet your own family's needs, but what happened in that?
Yeah. So like everything else, when you get a brand new car, you see that car everywhere. Well, we had our special needs child, and you begin to see special needs all over the place.
Right.
And one of the things was, I was, of course, committed to being in ministry. And yet, even committed to being in ministry, I found how difficult it was to be in a church with a special needs child. And there were so many examples of, we took Zeke to the nursery and said, hey, he's got Down syndrome. And there was a lot of, what do we do with him then? And I said, he's an infant. You watch him like everybody else, but there becomes a stigma that people have, that they get shocked at, well, how are we going to manage this? And so it started building. Well, are we reaching the special needs community? Are we reaching those that need it? Not only those that have the special needs, but those that are affected by the special needs.
Yeah.
Because getting up and going to church for everybody is a task, but you add layers of special needs and how to get them dressed and get them in the car, all these extra issues that take more time, and it becomes a layer that is hard. And then when you get there, as a special needs parent, you struggle to trust other people. Do they want to take care of my child?
Right.
And can they or will they take care of my child?
Yeah. Are they equipped?
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
Are they just taking one for the team, or are they equipped, or do they have a gift?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I imagine you ran into a lot of people who had a mercy caregiving gift in those times, right?
Yeah. No, certainly did. There were a lot of, and they always accompany some kind of, nurses are really good at it. They've experiences. Teachers are phenomenal at it. People that have been in children's ministry for a long time. There are people that desire to help. The question is how.
Right.
How do I help? What is the process of me to get there to help you out?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it became, what are we doing to think this through as ministers, as a church? What can we do? How is this something that we can think of beforehand, before special needs enters the door? Are we ready to accept special needs?
Right.
And that's a good question.
Are we equipped?
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is you're both serving on a Sunday, and I've been there as well. My wife would show up at the door with 3 kids. I don't know what happened on the way there, but they were little. My girls are 3 years apart, so they were like, babies. Yeah. But I was on staff at the church, and you're the lead pastor of this church, and you've got your family and your wife, and you're looking at each other like, "Are you all right today?" And no, I'm not. And you got a child that, not to mention the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're trying to navigate that and really take care for your own family. Mm. And I know that's a whole other issue of being in ministry and caring for your family.
Sure.
But it launched you into, how do we do this as a community?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is Rob Stout, host of the Next Stage podcast. If you're like a lot of men I talk to, you're working hard, you're providing for your family, checking the boxes, and all of those things you're supposed to do, but you're still wondering, is this really what I'm here for? Is this all there is? Believe me, you're not alone. And honestly, that's not how it's supposed to be. I believe that every man is called to live with purpose, one that flows out of his identity, out of who he is, not just what he does. That's why I speak at churches, at men's groups, and business associations about how to live with purpose born out of identity so that you can lead, provide, and live with clarity and conviction. Here's my ask. Would you reach out to your pastor, your men's group leader, or your business association and tee up a conversation between me and that leader to invite me in to that group to speak about some of these critical issues? Because believe me, if you're asking these questions, every man around you is asking those as well. So together, let's equip men to step into who they are, who they were meant to be at work, at home, and in life. Because when a man finds his purpose, everything changes. So reach out to your pastor, your men's group leader, or your business association and simply connect them with me through an email. My email is thenextstage@sherpaunlimited.com. And as a thank you, I want to give you a signed copy of my book, Getting Even, Countering Life's Hard Knocks. Let's partner together. Reach out, connect me with that leader, and get your free book. Thank you.
And I think the first thing I had to think about was, is special needs a lost people group? Is there anybody that's trying to reach them? Mm-hmm. Or are we just kind of ignoring that aspect of the things? And so the first part of it is I had to see how many people are affected by special needs. That was my first desire. And so I went to the CDC, found their statistics that about 25.6% of adult Americans, suffer with a disability or special needs. And then you can narrow it down to about 11.6 people, they say, adults have cognitive special needs of some kind. And so you try to calculate this out and you say, what does that mean as far as the population is concerned? And so they say about 21 million families are affected by special needs in the United States. And then you say, well, that's families. That's a group, 21 million groups of people. So how many individuals is that? And you just take the basic statistics that the average family is about 3.7 individuals. And so you say, well, now we're at about 63 million individuals are affected by special needs in the direct family. That's not grandmas and grandpas. That's not aunts and uncles. That is the direct, that's mom, dad, brothers, sisters. That's all we're talking about, 63 million people. And then you ask yourself, is 63 million people being unreached by the church in America? And that's where everything started to spawn from, to think, we're not doing good enough. We're not reaching out here.
Yeah. Wow. And I have never heard that question asked.
Right.
And I'm sure you haven't either.
No.
Why do you think that is?
I think people like to see things easily in boxes.
Yeah.
They say, this tribe in Africa is not reached. Let's reach them. And special needs has such a broad definition to what that means.
Right.
And so it can mean from a very simple, dyslexic all the way to a severe, wheelchair bound, cognitively disabled individual. And everything in between.
Right.
Even autism itself has a massive spectrum of what that means. And so the question has to be, this little town in Africa that's not reached, they're all roughly going to be the same way that we're going to reach them. The special needs, where do we start?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah.
And so that I think is the intimidating factor for a lot of churches and a lot of pastors and a lot of people moving forward.
Right.
And so that becomes a part of a paralyzing factor for us.
Yeah. And on top of that, the demographic, and this is true, I'm not saying it's right, but it's true. The financial toll that is taken on a family and the emotional toll and the ability to serve and be involved because of their family situation is not exactly one that's going to be a church growth model.
Right.
And I say that being outside of this. So I'm not throwing stones, but I'm like, if I'm going to launch a church and it's going to be in, number one, it's not going to be in the poorest area of town, probably. Right. It's not going to be with the most vulnerable group of people. It's going to be where we can, grow and my church can, thrive and blah, blah, blah. You're talking about a group of people who probably are pretty taxed.
Yeah.
We're probably there because they've got a lot of needs and they're feeling the weight, the compounded weight that you talked about, the diagnosis and diagnosis and diagnosis. And what do we do now? And so, man, it's not exactly an audience that gives back a lot.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point because one of the things that I've always said is that there are people in the church that your desire for people is they come in, they grow in their faith, and then they serve. They become financially invested through their tithe. They become service invested. They do all those things. These expectations of special needs are they're only going to be consumers.
Yeah.
That is the stretch of their ability is we're going to come, we're going to intake scripture, we're going to intake the best that we can, everything that you're going to give us. But the output that you get from us is going to be minimal at best.
Right. Right.
And you got to be okay with that.
You do. You've got to be there to serve that because you got to realize, hey, listen, man, getting there, showing up, just the struggle it is to get there is probably the best that some have to give.
Yeah.
Right.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And like you said, the fatigue just to even get up in the morning to do that is going to be more than that's what special needs parents have to weigh. Is it worth it? Am I getting what I need to put all this effort and energy into?
Yeah. And doing that every day of their life.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and you're both that's what I love about this conversation. You're both fixing the problem and experiencing the problem, and all at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's a neat thing, Jeff.
Yeah.
Um,
It's neat. And yet I think it's a burden to the point that even my own son, I can't accomplish all that I want to accomplish with him.
yeah.
That he typically won't sit and listen to sermons. So as I'm with him throughout the week, that's when he hears my sermons. I discuss my sermon with him. He tells me if I'm doing good or bad. I can tell by his reaction. I was like, well, that's not going to work today. We're going to move to something different.
Yeah.
And so he hears my sermons probably 3 times throughout the week, just discussing it with him, because I want him to hear me. At the same time, I know that there are so many times that he is not going to be able to sit in service and actually intake what I want to do. However, the point is not just him, it's the family unit. It's everybody. And that's what I want. I don't want to just speak to special needs. I want to speak to their families themselves.
Right. Yeah. And I used a word there and you jumped on it. That's a neat thing. I've been told mostly early on, our situations are very different. Ours are 100% on the physical side of things, and they've had ramifications over on the psychological, but not on the mental side that you're dealing with. People are like, oh man, and they throw things out like, oh, that's really neat. Well, that doesn't land well with me. Or something stupid, absolutely foolish, like, well, God won't give you more than you can handle.
Yeah.
And I am somewhere in between vomiting and smacking that person in the face, because I'm like, yes, he absolutely does.
Yeah, that's right.
That's never talked about in the Bible.
Right.
He will never abandon you, but he absolutely will give you more than you can handle.
Yeah. And he does it because he wants you to fall back on him.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
And so many times, you're right. The amount of lips and tongues I've had to bite on myself to not say things is massive, because the whole concept of, I told you feeding was the biggest issue. You know how many times I've told, well, that's not the worst. That's not so bad. And I'm going, yeah, I just told you it's the worst thing there is here. And you're now telling me it's not so bad. Right. Because do you know how hard it is to feed a child of his size, his age, 3 times a day? Sit down, you blend food. It's a task. Right. It's a process. And so to just say, that's not that big a deal, is just insensitive, is mild to put it. Really. Yeah.
Well, and yes. And not to mention, I mean, the thing I've learned to say is, that's not my experience. But I'm really sorry. And how can, not only sorry, like, because that's so patronizing as well, but just empathy with, and how can I help? What can we do?
Yeah, exactly. It's taxing. And I want to acknowledge that you're going through a lot. Yeah. Acknowledgement starts a whole lot of processes.
Right. It's the empathy. And I don't have a scripture, God forbid. I have a scripture for it.
Right.
Right. Some scripture Band-Aid is what I call it.
Right.
Or some answer or some patronizing thing, instead of just like, they look you in the eye and
we don't want to be cliche Christians. Every time something comes up, we say the same cliche over and over again. Mm-hmm. Let's empathize whatever the situation is before us, and special needs is one that I think a lot of people struggle to do.
Yeah, 100%. And not to mention 25% of the American church population. Yeah. Much less, you mentioned the group in Africa. You talk about no resources. They have the same issues. I mean, I saw, when I was in Uganda, seeing people with disabilities there who don't have any resources, not to mention the child mortality rate there is much higher. Your son probably wouldn't have made it had he been born in another country.
Absolutely not.
And neither your 100%. Wife either. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
So yeah, that's a whole nother side to this whole
Yeah.
thing. Man, here's what the point that we're landing on today as you listen to this and as you kind of eavesdrop into this conversation. That when men lead with purpose, when the church leads with purpose, they are able to see the unseen. They're able to make valued the vulnerable. They're able to bring a place of belonging to not only kids or adult children or whoever, the special needs population, but also their families and their caregivers. We're going to continue this conversation with Jeff. But before we do, we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. All right, let's just keep rocking and rolling here. I want to jump into a little bit of the heart of Jesus around special needs, if that's cool. Is there anything else you want to tackle before we do that?
No, I think that's a good position to jump into.
Okay, and it didn't exhaust that whole point, not at all.
Absolutely.
But yeah, let's jump back in.
Okay.
Men, welcome back. We're in a conversation with Jeff Paschall. He's the lead pastor of a church in Wiggins, Colorado, which is right outside of Denver. We're talking about the issue of special needs in the church. And Jeff, I want to jump back into the conversation. First of all, thank you for your vulnerability, your transparency in the first half of that conversation.
Yeah. Well, it has to be said.
It has to be said. And thank you for saying it. And thank you for not wilting, for not quitting, for not running away, but for pursuing your calling and adopting this part and going, I didn't know this was part of it, but let's go. Let's keep going and persevering in that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
So let's talk about the scriptures. As you look at specifically the life of Christ, how does his life model serving the vulnerable, the unseen, the inconvenient, if you would, how does his life and ministry model that, and how does it set a table for what the church can be?
Yeah. No, I think, Christ, you just watch his ministry. There's always, deaf, blind, lame. Everybody is seeking him to overcome something. And I think one of the things that really is important to remember is that Christ was all inclusive. It was not hey, I'm going to set a table for these people. I'm going to set one for these people. It's, we're going to invite everybody. And that's an important factor. And I always remember, in Matthew 22, there's the lawyer that comes and questions Christ and says, what is the greatest command? And Christ gives him two answers. He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, body, mind, all inclusive, all in on God. But then he says, but the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. But the last little phrase he says there in verse 40 says, all the laws and all the prophets hinge on these two. And so you have to ask yourself, what is hinging on these two? And you have to define what that means. Even the 10 Commandments, you break them up there. Devotion to God, devotion to people. And what does it mean to love yourself, love your neighbor as yourself? And how does that equate to special needs? Because Christ heals, always healing, miracles here, there. He's always doing this. And so are we loving people, regardless of who they are, like ourselves? And you have to ask that question. Are we doing that?
Right.
What do I see in the special needs individual or this special needs family that if I'm put there, how would I feel this? How would I feel loved by the church? And it's a hard concept because you can't put yourself there. I don't want people to try to pretend like they know what I'm going through. But at the same time, you can have what we talked about, empathy, and say, okay, Christ shed tears, even though he knew the end result. We can shed tears for people. We can empathize with people, even though we know that we can minister them, care for them, and help them, and be a church that ministers to them. And so I think Christ leads the example. His entire ministry was about proclaiming the greatness of the gospel, the glory and the inclusion that God has set before them in Christ, that says, all that come to me will be accepted. And are we willing to do that? Is that us? And that's a question every church has to ask for themselves.
Yeah, and there's also a false wall built between, and I grew up this way, I don't know if you did or not, between the Old and the New Testament. And in the Old Testament, God needed like some Prozac. He was
Right.
ticked off all the time. And in the New Testament, he got happy, and God did not change.
Right.
The way his revelation, bringing Christ, bringing the launching of the kingdom of God, and then through the church in the book of Acts. But if you look back at the Old Testament, there are specific commands. In fact, what Jesus is talking about is in Leviticus and in Deuteronomy.
Yep.
There are specific commands for taking care of the poor. One of the reasons that God's judgment came on the nation of Israel, because they didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't care for the marginalized. But all throughout the Old Testament, the story of the gospel going, or not the gospel, but the good news of God and what he was doing through the Jewish people was going out all over the world. And people were invited into that, to join into that. But also the instructions to leave the corners of your field for, I mean, one of the best stories in the Old Testament is about that, leaving areas of your field for widows to come and gather food for, the story of Mephibosheth with David, looking after one of Jonathan's sons who, was dropped and was apparently in some form crippled, couldn't walk. That's not a politically correct word, but that's what he was.
Right.
And bringing him to his table. And of course, those are kind of sub stories in the bigger plot, but the heart of God for the marginalized never changed. It's not like Jesus taught God something, right? He was living out something that God was already doing.
Yeah. And you're right. Through Deuteronomy, and he, like I said, in that Matthew 22, that's Deuteronomy 6:5, and Leviticus 19:18, that he is pulling from the Old Testament, saying, this hasn't changed. Like what we're supposed to do is right there. You brought up the caring for the widows. That's the entire story of Ruth,
right,
and Boaz. Like he cared for them, and just took care of them. And so one of the things that's so important, even when you go to the Psalm, is we're all, God made us in our inward parts in the womb, and we get that. And we apply that to abortion, and we say, we got to speak out for them. Yeah. But there's another group that we have to speak up for. Yeah. We have to be a voice, especially when each child doesn't know how to speak for themselves. They don't know how to advocate for themselves. They don't know how to pursue holiness. And no, they're all going to pursue it in their own way, depending on their disability. But we have to be there as a church to say, we're here to speak up for you, and we're here to guide and do everything we can as God has called us to. Yeah. And what does that mean? It means a lot of different things for a church, depending on size, shape, place, wherever. But it doesn't change the goal. The goal remains the same. We're all trying to minister to those around us in whatever fashion they need. Christ himself said, you didn't know me. And they said, when did we not know you? And he said, you didn't feed me. You didn't clothe me. And they said, when did we not do any of that? He said, if you don't do it for the less of me, those that needed it, you're not doing it for me. And so we have to speak out. We have to be up there up front.
Yeah. Which brings up a great point that frequently, I don't know about you, but I frequently struggle with this, that happiness and calling and doing something meaningful and significant is something out there. It's beyond what I can see. It's in another person's life. It's, it's in some make-believe world or whatever. But what Jesus is saying is like, it is right in front of you. Like, you didn't know that you were going to be that person to that neighbor. You didn't know that, that relative was going to call you to be there for them. You didn't know you were going to be the 2 a.m. call. You didn't know you were going to be thrust into that type of ministry, but it's right there and right in front of you. It's not mysterious.
Yeah. No, it's not.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is there's elements of special needs that you can see.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear to see. You see Zeke, he has Down syndrome. There's no surprise. You know it.
Right.
There's a lot of invisible ones too. There's ones that people don't see.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be cognitive about that, to say, there are people sitting out here that suffer from some level of special needs that we don't even know about, because on the external, they look fine.
It all looks
There's
fine.
nothing here to look at. And so we have to be more than just observers of the external.
Mm-hmm.
We have to talk and get to know people so the relationship grows so that we can understand the internal.
100%. And yeah, I mean, I love the line. This was when my daughter was really young. There was a winter ski movie that came out in Colorado. It's Warren Miller was the producer of it. But it had the U.S. disabled ski team in it, and it had one of these. And my daughter was probably 4 at the time, 5, something like that. But I hung it I pulled it out of this magazine that they had, and I hung it on her wall. And it was a young woman who was a double amputee, and she said, everybody has issues. Mine you can just see.
Right. Right.
But it was like, you never know who's got PTSD, who's got trauma, who's got depression, anxiety. Everybody has some of that.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. And one thing to close about speaking up, I'm reminded, Martin Luther King said once, he said, in the end of the day, it is not the voices of our enemies that we'll remember, but it's the silence of our friends. And to be silent is such a powerful thing over even being vocal. We don't want to be silent when it comes to these individuals. We do want to speak up because we do want to show the empathy and care and protect them from the outside world that is, frankly, there to pull them in a direction that is just damaging to their life and soul.
Yeah, I love that. Man, the point that we're landing on today is that to lead with purpose, to be a man with purpose that we talk about all the time. May you be a man of purpose, born out of identity. But a big piece of that involves cultivating a place for the overlooked, for the looked past, for the vulnerable, to create a special place where everybody belongs, and where you don't look Jeff in the eye and just go, yeah, whatever, Pastor Jeff, and look right past what they're carrying, or where you don't look at my daughter and be like, oh yeah, well, bummer, good, glad she's got a first leg.
Right.
Like, but where we're able to be part of something, and that is the local church, where people are valued, where needs are met, especially special needs.
Yeah.
So I want to transition and you didn't just take a look at something and kind of diagnose a problem or look at it from a family angle, but you kind of work to put things in place locally that would meet those needs. And can you walk us through some of what you're doing, very practical on the ground level at your church to help address that audience?
Sure. So on the basic level, we have a room. Everybody has a cry room, which is important. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the important things is for those that individuals that go overly stimulated, that need a place that is just calm and quiet, and recognizing that the normality of worship service can be overwhelming to some. The volume, the lights, all that stuff can cause people to be overwhelmed. So to give them a place where you can just shut off the lights, you can adjust the volume of the sermon or the music, where you can play it low. When the pastor goes up to start preaching, turn it up. So we have a room that's just right off for that. That is the cry room, but it's also for those individuals that need that destimulation area. But the other thing is, and my wife really kind of inspired this. She handles a lot of the academic side of our son. So she's gone through a lot of IEPs, which is an individual education plan. She deals with a lot of that. So she said, well, why are we so obsessed with not creating like an individual spiritual plan, an ISB, and just saying, let's ask some basic questions when they enter. What kind of needs do they actually have for the 2 to 3 hours we have? What do they need? How do they respond to things better? Do they like to be read to? Do they like to engage in activities? Like, how do they feel like they're learning? What is their best opportunity? And then you intake. I think I have 15 questions on mine. It's not very many, and they're not intrusive. And then you take that and you say, can we meet this need? How can we formulate something that says,
Right.
I want to be able to spiritually meet your plan. Let's meet you where you're at. We're not going to pull you to a separate room by yourself unless your parents request that. We're going to put you with other kids because, frankly, other kids need to see special needs. They need to grow in that understanding that that's a part of the world, and they need to be there. We're not going to shelter them from that. And at the same time, we'll have somebody there that will work towards this spiritual plan that we put in place for them. And it's easy. It's not hard. It's basic questions. What can we do for your child or your individual in this family that's special needs, and get the opinion of the person that's with them all the time. They're the one that knows. And guess what? They've made the effort to come to you, which means they'll make the effort to educate you as well. And help you to figure out what to do. Because you know what? Those 2 to 3 hours, that might be the only 2 to 3 hours that individual gets a break from their special needs child in the grand scheme of things. Right. So to offer them that, they're going to be more than willing to help you to figure that out.
Absolutely.
And if they're reluctant and they just say, I would rather my child be with me, that's okay too. Allow them to start trusting you. Allow them to start growing in that understanding. And so those are a few real basic things we've done. We've changed a little bit of how we welcome if somebody has a special needs child. I tend to try to have my wife address them, since she'll engage the child a lot better than some people that aren't trained and aren't there. She'll do that, and she'll be the welcoming wagon for a lot of people. And so we've changed that to some degree. And then the other part is, don't place them by themselves. Don't, like, if you're going to usher them to a chair, don't usher them on that side of the room where there's less people.
Right.
Put them next to somebody that will lean over and talk to them and shake their hand and just engage them. Because a lot of special needs families, I think we addressed it at the beginning, they feel lonely. They feel abandoned by a lot of people. They don't feel like they can have normal, typical conversations with people because their life has led them in this special needs direction. And so just do practical things to start. It can build from there, but do practical things to start. And that's the simplest way I can outline it. There are other issues you can do. You can tone down certain music things. If you're rock and roll and really loud, you can tone that down if you don't have a room, or you can offer certain things to them. We used to offer earmuffs at a different church I was at. Hey, we have a set of earmuffs for you. We have autistic seats, straps that we can offer you? So
Mhm.
a lot of parents, the kid gets up and runs around and that bothers them. Well, we have one that just straps around them that helps them just to stay engaged in the chair.
Yeah.
They can't get up and run around. So their parent is free to worship and shake hands and have conversations without that worry.
Mhm.
So there are a number of practical things, inexpensive things to do up front. And so that's where I would encourage most churches to go, as people have called me because of them finding my doctorate online and said, "Hey, what can we do at our church?" I say, evaluate yourselves first.
Mhm.
Figure out what can you and can't you do. Really small churches, they can't add a room that's dedicated just for low sensory,
Right.
but understand that there are things you can do. No
Yeah.
church is without. You have people, you have things you can do. And
Mhm.
so without financially breaking you, you can figure out a lot of different things to do. And the bigger the church is, the more opportunity you have to do different things. But, I found I, interviewing a lot of pastors over the years, it surprised me that the larger the church, the pastors became reluctant even more. And the reason wasn't financial. It wasn't because of their fear of anything. Their fear was, what are our legal responsibilities
Mm.
if we take in a special needs child?
Right.
And that pushed them away from that ministry.
Yeah.
And one of the things I said is, if you create an individual spiritual plan at the bottom, the parent can sign it, and it's a legal document that says, I'm allowing them to do this for us. And so you can work those things out.
Yeah.
And the thing I just want to encourage is, don't just say it's above us. It's beyond us. We can't do it.
Yeah.
Take small practical steps no matter where you're at.
Yeah. I love that. And not to mention to that, Pastor, I would say, you can get sued if somebody slips and falls on your sidewalk as well.
Correct. Correct.
So
Yeah.
let's watch ourselves there. But I was talking to one adult who's had some physical disabilities, and she said, you know what? She goes, one of the things, and she has a bone issue with her hands. She goes, lever doorknobs. I said, what? She goes, I can't open doorknobs that are round or
Yeah.
oval. I need levers. I go, that's the accommodation you need?
Yeah.
She goes, yeah. I'm like, how simple is that?
Yeah.
So you notice on a lot of public buildings, they've got levers versus round knobs to grasp. And like those kind of things that, you don't know unless you ask. And
Right.
how hard is it to build a wheelchair ramp?
Right.
You get a group of 4 guys together and give them a 6-pack on a Saturday. Well, you may, who knows what would show up, but it's not that hard to
Yeah.
accommodate those things.
Yeah. No. And I think that's the thing is we have the ability to do it. Do we have the desire? And
We have a
that's what we
heartbeat.
need.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
I think that's important.
Love that. Man, we're going to come right back. We're going to take one more break. And we're actually going to talk to you about addressing one of the key needs of your life, and that is building intentional community. But we'll be right back, and we're going to wrap up with a kind of call to action. What can you do if you're just Joe Six-Pack guy? You're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what that looks like in my life. Listen to this, and we'll be right back, and we're going to wrap up. Man, there's a loneliness and isolation epidemic going on in our world today. 50% of men report frequent feelings of loneliness. Another 50% report not having any close friends. And 70% of men report not having a significant relationship or a conversation that goes beyond the surface level in the last week. Life doesn't have to be that way. In fact, Sherpa Unlimited has come along and said, we want to help solve that problem. And I want you to picture your world like this. Picture your world where you have other strong men around you who are heading the same direction you are. Not just yes men in your life or drinking buddies or poker playing buddies or something like that, but men where you had the opportunity to grow, to really foster the kind of life that you want, to grow that internal world that allows you to be the man you need to be at work, at home, in your community. Men who were there to challenge you, but also lift you up when you fall. And we all do. I want you to check out Sherpa Unlimited's opportunity that we have coming up. They're called Ascent Men's Communities. These are bi-weekly groups that meet literally anywhere in the world. You have to invest in these. They're not just free, but it's very affordable. You'll see. Less than the cost of a couple pizzas and certainly less than the cost of your gym membership. Go to sherpaunlimited.com/ascent. We'll see you in one of our Ascent Men's Communities very soon. Men, we're back and we're going to wrap up this episode just with a very simple call to action. And that is this. Jeff, I want to ask you a very simple question. For the normal guy out there who, didn't necessarily grow up around somebody with special needs, didn't have special needs thrust upon them like you did, or I did. What is something they can do? Maybe it starts with an attitude and then an action, but what is something they can do to be more, I don't want to use the overused word sensitive, but aware of and take action around people who are overlooked most of the time or vulnerable?
Yeah. And I think awareness is hard for us sometimes. We see what we want to see and we see what we, or don't see what we don't want to see. So I think just recognizing that around us is a great deal of need and saying to yourself, am I somebody in a position to help somebody? And the simplest thing is awareness means intentionally trying to meet other people in your life and not being afraid. Fear drives a lot of us. And so you see somebody with a special needs, you see mom and dad, does that drive you a different direction or towards them? And I think they're not going to hurt you. They're not going to bite. You need to engage, because one of the most important things special needs families need to feel is that you're not afraid to get next to them and be a witness with them. And so don't be afraid to do it. Turn that switch on that says, I'm going to go introduce myself to these individuals. I'm going to be there. And then practically speaking, listen, one of my biggest experiences is special needs families struggle to accept help because they've accepted help in the past and yet it hasn't gone the way they wanted to, so they don't accept it. So sometimes it's better, instead of saying, hey, can I bring you dinner? Instead of doing that, say, hey, I picked up an extra pie. Let me swing by and drop it off. Are you guys available? And already have that intention in front. Hey, I'm bringing this.
Right.
I'm going to give you something. Yeah, I don't expect anything in return. All I need to do from you is know is now a good time.
Right.
Or is, an hour a good time. And don't give them the option to say no. Give them an option to say, yeah, now's a good time. Bring it by, have a conversation. Because those little things, those little changes will allow them to say, this individual is really willing to step into my life and to step into somebody's life and into the mud and the grime and the ditches that are there is hard to offer up to our. But if you just say, no, I'm diving in. I hope there's enough room for me in this ditch because I'm going to be there. Yep. And just thrust yourself lovingly, not inappropriately, but thrusting yourself into them by offering things in a manner that is more, hey, I'm not asking you a yes or no question. I'm saying, when can I help you?
Right.
You just determine the time.
It's when.
Right. Exactly.
And I'll tell you what, old school, small church, when our daughter was born, man, dude, we didn't know what way was up. We not to mention we were trying to figure out how to be parents, which is a whole different thing. Right. But there was this group of women, and it was a small church that we were part of a church plant. It was old school, Meals on Wheels. And it wasn't special attention. It was somebody showing up going, hey, we've got dinner. We're going to be there at 5. Yeah. Okay. I mean, like, And it wasn't, do you want dinner? It was, no, here's your plan. And we're doing this. Just being enveloped. And so many times, and that's the thing, the big churches, where does that happen? Like,
Right.
where does that happen?
Right.
Smaller communities, boy, it can happen in really rich ways that are
Yeah.
so foreign to our culture right now.
It
So
is.
foreign.
One of the greatest things for us when we had one of our friends go, hey, we're going to come pick up your other son, Nehemiah, and just take him out with our kids for a while.
Yeah.
That was just an overwhelming blessing because we couldn't go to all the birthday parties or all the things because we had somebody in the hospital or this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And so just to recognize that our typical child needs to have those things too was just such an overwhelming blessing to us.
Yeah.
Just for that offer. Hey, we're going to the park. We're going to swing by and get Nehemiah.
Mhm.
Fantastic. That was such a blessing to us.
Yeah. Because there is the story of the other children in the family.
There
And
is.
we both know that. And those are tough to deal with.
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you what, just taking a minute to learn someone's story,
Yeah.
being there, not being the person who makes and quick diverts their attention, like being special needs phobic, like whatever, if that's even a term, and I think it should
Sure.
be. Like, man, there's so many things, but it starts with the heart. It starts with having the eyes of Christ, who didn't run. In fact, he ran too, but he also didn't run with solutions and memory verses and, all that crap. He was just there and he showed up.
Yeah.
That is a huge part of what it means to be a man who lives with purpose, born out of identity. And men, we're going to land the plane of this episode because it's been quite a conversation. But Jeff, thank you. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your perspective, your heart, your work. Yeah, thanks so much.
Oh, no, thank you so much. And thank you for giving me an opportunity just to share the story because I'll close with this on my end. The one thing Rebecca and I said is if Christ will be shined through our son and somebody will see Christ, that will be worth it. So.
Yeah. Well, and from an observer, he is.
Yeah.
And the fact that you haven't quit, I mean, there's a weight all the time. It's like going, putting a ruck vest on. There's a weight all the time that's on you as a shepherd of people, as a leader in your family, as an additional weight that compounds with a son with special needs. And so thanks for jumping in and sharing your perspective. And gosh, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Man, we're gonna wrap up our time today, but may you be a man who puts on a different set of lenses, like to look at the world differently because of this episode. Seeing the overlooked, seeing the vulnerable, seeing those who don't have a place, and may you be someone who helps create that in healthy ways. Thanks for tuning in to the Next Stage podcast. And until next time, may you be a man who lives a life of purpose born out of your identity as a man created in God's image. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for joining us for the Next Stage podcast for men with Rob Stout. The Next Stage helps a man live with purpose, born out of his identity as a man made in God's image. The Next Stage publishes every other Wednesday morning by Sherpa Unlimited Coaching for Men based in Denver. Learn more at sherpaunlimited.com. We love feedback. Please send your feedback, questions, or requests for future content to thenextstage@sherpaunlimited.com. The Next Stage taps the wisdom of the ancient scriptures, and if you don't have a copy of the Bible, you can check one out at your local public library, buy one at your favorite online store, or download what is called the YouVersion app to your smartphone. Again, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again in a couple weeks.